Hey guys, it's Burgernator and welcome back to Hangar Hangouts. This time I've got something quite unique, something quite interesting. I have Corsair Gaming. Corsair Gaming is quite a new-ish content creator on TikTok side. However, what gives him a unique take on War Thunder is he was actually a crew member on the M1 Abrams. So I thought he would be a perfect person to get to know the M1 a bit more and see what his thoughts are on the game, how the game plays with regards to real life tanking. I know this is a game, but I thought this would be interesting. So let's get to it. So we are joined with Corsair Gaming. Corsair, welcome to Hangar Hangouts.
Hey, thank you for inviting me.
The pleasure is all mine. So Corsair, tell me a bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Ukraine, moved to the States when I was about 15 years old, finished high school, joined the military shortly after that as a 19 kilo, which is a tanker. I
Nice.
served in the Army for 8 years, and I was on the Abrams in Germany for 2 years, and then 6 years in Fort Benning as a trainer there and supporting the other armored lieutenants that were coming through the Army at that time.
Quite a long military
And
career.
Into your vehicle.
for two reasons. Well, initially I actually wanted to be a pilot, so I was going to go to the Air Force, but after I did my initial testing and everything, they didn't tell me what I could qualify for as far as what I was going to be doing in the Air Force. So the Army recruiter was right there, and he was like,
That's it.
come on in, let's talk. And he started listing all these, all my choices. And, you know, he goes into all these abbreviations and things. And I'm like, what is that? What is this? You know, and infantry, chaplain's assistant, and this and that, and cook, mechanic, you know, supply. And he goes 19 kilo. And I was like, what is that? He was like, tanker. And I'm like, tanker, like you mean being on a tank? He was like, yeah, on the Abrams. So that just, you know, got me fired up being like 18 years old. Like, oh my God, you're telling me I can be on a tank? I'm like, hell yes, I
Starry-eyed.
Yep.
And would you say, I feel like there's a lot of times, like in the military itself, a lot of sentiment that people feel cheated by military recruiters. Would you say that's the case for you?
I would say cheated. I probably would say they didn't, or maybe they couldn't tell me like how bad it would get at certain points. You know, I had no idea. And the funny part of it was, once I signed my contract, I had to wait about 6 months before I went to basic training. So in between that, we're doing what's called like future soldier program. We came in, did PT, did some formation or some basic stuff, and they would give us tickets to go to these events. We went to Tampa Bay Lightning game, which is a professional hockey team here.
Oh, yeah.
And we went to like a monster truck event, and we would go to do these ceremonies and do swearing. And so when we were at these at the ice arena there in Tampa, we were gathered there with the recruiter commander, and all of us who signed up were there before we went to do the ceremony on the ice. And she started asking us, like, what do you do? Like, what's your MOS? Where are you gonna go? And a lot of these guys were going to Fort Jackson, and they kept saying, relax in Jackson, relax in Jackson. You know, I guess it was like an easy, take me up. It was like an easy, basic. And when turn came to me, they were like, what are you and where you going? And I said, you know, 19 kilo, Fort Knox, Kentucky. She went, ooh. I was thinking, like, what does that mean? You know, like,
Yeah,
I mean, I found out when I got there, you know.
fair enough. So what is your favorite vehicle currently in game?
You know, I don't have probably a specific, but I do like the light tanks, like the EBRs, like the light quick tanks.
Ooh,
I
yes.
can go flank and have fun.
Nice. How long have you been playing War Thunder?
Not very long, maybe 4 or 5 months. It's like, I don't know.
Wow.
But I did try it initially when it came out on Xbox. You see, I just didn't know kind of what it was about, and I think I was in that first battle when you're against AI. I thought like the X-ray mechanic was like really awesome. I was like, what is that? Like, that's cool. But then when I was playing the AI, I'm like, sorry.
No, go for it. I just got bombed.
I was playing and I didn't understand it. You know what I mean? I was like driving around the map, like in the city. Like I don't see anyone, because I was playing World of Tanks for a very long time.
Yes.
And I didn't understand what Thunder was about, so I kind of put it off. And when I decided I was going to do like video game content, I started with World of Tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And people on TikTok were like, well, they said War Thunder is free. War Thunder's, like jump on War Thunder. And so yeah, I jumped back into it. Yeah. I jumped into it, and at first it was the same thing. I was playing against AI, but at that point I was like, okay, I understand that's AI. And then I was in. Are you still in the game, or did you leave the lobby?
Oh, I'm flying. I'm flying.
Okay. Thanks. But what I was saying. Oh. And then I played arcade, obviously, because that's like the first mode that you were in. I didn't know anything about like changing the modes or whatnot, and I posted a video, and then people were like, you need to go to RP. So everything came from like the comment section. Basically, I'll make a video, I'll post it, somebody commented something like, don't carry this much ammo, don't do this, don't do that. It's like, oh, okay. So I started to learn the game based on the comments and the feedback I got on my videos.
Would you say all your comment was like, I would say, constructive criticism?
I mean, yeah. I wouldn't say like they talk down. They're just like giving me advice in the comment section.
Nice. Yeah, I must say it's quite interesting how many content creators started out in, I want to say, World of Tanks, and then progressed arcade, and then after that went realistic. I followed the exact same path, and it's quite interesting. It's playing on my 6. And tell me a bit more about your military background. How long did you serve? Yeah, would you say your overall experience is positive? How would your military background, especially being a tanker, transfer to the game? Like, does that affect how you play the game, tactics being used, how you utilize the vehicle itself?
Well, I was in for... Okay, I was in the military in the Army for 8 years. So March, I think maybe like 2 months shy of 8 years. I joined March 1st, 2010, got out in January 10th, I think, 2018. And so, yeah, joined in as a tanker. I went to basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky, one of the last tankers to go through there, because then they moved it to Fort Benning, Georgia. That's now where they train tankers now. And I loved it, man. Like, I remember the first time seeing the Abrams was like, can't even describe it. Like, like I saw a bunch of videos about it, before going into basic. But when you see it in person, like how long it is, how wide it is, and everything, like when we saw it from far away, so probably like, I don't know, like 60, 70 meters, But from there, seeing the people climbing it and getting off of it, and we weren't even training on it at that point yet. I just kind of randomly saw it on base. We were waiting for something. I was like, whoa, man. Like that type of machine, like I've seen planes and things, and even fighters, fighter jets or whatnot. Like, they were impressive, but for some reason when I saw the Abrams, it was just like that's a killing machine, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's very intimidating when I first saw it.
On what version of the Abrams did you serve?
On the A1, M1 Abrams. And the way the basic training works for tankers, it's called OSET training, not the same as a regular specialty. Is that, you go into basic training, you have 3 phases: red, white, and blue. And then you go to your AIT afterwards for your specialty. But for us, it was a gold phase after the red, white, and blue. Then it was gold phase, and we stayed with the same drill sergeants, the same barracks, same everything. You kind of just finished that basic training, and you put a different, flag gold color, and you started training on the tank. First, we trained on the simulators. It wasn't like a real tank, but as you get in it, kind of like those fighter jet stuff where it's modeled, like the Abrams, and you kind of get a feel for it or whatnot, and then you actually get to drive it in real life after you do that.
Okay. How big is that simulator?
It's only as big as the driver hole, basically. The driver's hole. Because you're not getting trained for like the gunner or TC position. Everything is just the driver, basically, just to get you familiar with the controls. Because the way the Abrams works, because of the turbine engine, it doesn't respond to throttle the same way a car does. So there's like a weird delay. You give it gas, and there's like a second, 2 seconds like delay between how it obviously the brakes are instant, but as far as gas goes, it's it's weird.
And how realistic would you say War Thunder is for you as a tanker?
Well, it's probably the most realistic tank game. I don't know, as far as planes, I don't play a lot of plane games, but as far as tanks, it's probably the most realistic. But I think the specifications, the little details as far as like how thick the armor is or whatnot, how realistic that is. I think one aspect that War Thunder is missing as far as the whole experience with tanks is like, it doesn't really convey what it's like being on a tank, because it's not just about, pushing a couple buttons, going forward, back, pushing your mouse button and firing it. Everything has to do with the crew and your confidence in your commander. Imagine you're being 18 years old, they put you on the machine, this tank, and you're supposed to go to war. You don't know anything,
Yeah.
Load it, drive it. So you're 100% relying on your commander to give you commands. You're not the thing that you can do by yourself is maybe if they tell you follow the road, and you'll follow the road until they tell you to stop or turn or whatever. So 100% of your guide comes from the tank commander telling you to turn left, turn right, more or less, go forward, go back. And so it's not like you're driving by yourself, and all the crew is doing everything that the TC tells them to. Tell them which round to load and which target to to look at, acquire, or fire, and so on.
Okay.
So playing the game, it's in that sense is a little arcadey, because this doesn't really translate into like what actually it feels like being on a tank, and the impacts and the weight of the thing, and you know what I mean. Like there's a lot that goes into it. So it does feel like a game. I'll say that. You know what I mean?
And on your in your military service, what position on the M1 were you on most of the time? Like, where do you have the most experience as a tanker?
As a driver, because as you join, you start as one of the two positions, which is the driver or the loader. Driver, obviously self-explanatory, but the loader obviously loads the rounds. He does have a machine gun he can shoot if the commander tells him to, as well as operating some of the radio is mounted basically right where the loader is at. So as far as communicating with other tanks and things, if it needs to be troubleshooted to switch channels or do whatnot, he operates that as well.
Okay, nice. Is there any mechanics that you would like to bring into the game that you feel like would add more realism or more fun ways to play the game?
Actually, I've done some content, and the video I was editing before we started talking was about some mechanics.
Ooh,
I guess I can talk about them. Yeah, I can talk about them. One of them is being airborne tanks. you know, being able to drop tanks, because obviously there were tanks that were designed to be airborne, you know, because I think that the static spawn points in the game, I think, is sort of like an outdated mechanic. You know, if you think like on a grand scale of how a tank battle would happen, you know what I mean? You don't just appear out of nowhere and some spot that the enemy knows exactly where you're going to show up, you know? So I think airborne tanks would be kind of cool, and the way I think it could be implemented on certain maps, and I probably don't think all maps could have that option, is would be like a predetermined landing zone that you can choose from. So it'd be like just like a spawn point, but for you to have it. And it would be cool if you could have like a cargo plane, and which has a certain load capacity or limits. So if their tank meets that load capacity, you'll be able to, you know, have it as being able to drop that tank in a certain area.
Would you say the airborne vehicle should be player controlled or AI?
I would probably, like, if there's a predetermined zone where the tank would be dropped to, until the tank lands on the ground, you know, it should be probably just like an animation or like AI control, basically.
Okay.
Because I don't see, because if you let the players control the landing, so to speak, they'll probably go and drop somewhere on top of a building where you can't get them. You know, they'll just exploit the mechanic.
Definitely, that sounds like our player base. A lot of people has been getting banned now for cap trading recently.
Yeah, I saw your video, I think either today or yesterday, about that.
What if War Thunder pushed realism even further? Let's explore some new, immersive and fun mechanics that could bring fresh depth to the game. First, imagine if War Thunder introduced airborne tanks. In real life, certain tanks were designed to be airdropped, and with a few modifications to some maps, this could be a game changer. By adding airdrop zones on select maps, players could airdrop tanks mid-battle, creating new tactical opportunities. These zones would be predetermined, ensuring that the mechanic couldn't be exploited while giving other players a way to counter it, adding an additional layer of strategy. This could also...
Is there any mechanics that's in-game that you would actually change, that you're not happy with?
The modification mechanic, as far as like you research a tank and then you have to research the whole modification to be able to use certain rounds or improve parts. Like, that's another part of the video. The second part of the video that I'm making right now is that if you're gonna make it realistic, where you're able to modify a tank, let's say hypothetically, modify the carburetor for it to run better, you know, like they have it where the tank runs 5% more efficient, a little bit faster or whatever. I think what needs to be done like that is to have a crew of mechanics that have certain experience, and they're the ones that would maintain. So let's say you have your cost of cost of repair, maybe split that between cost of repair and cost of maintenance, but as well as having that mechanics crew that can do certain modifications and, you know, maintaining a tank. And the higher the experience is of that crew, you know, the better your tank performs in battle. That would be like more realistic. Because, you know, researching every single like track, improve parts, crew, you know, changing crew, like all that stuff is just to increase the like your grind time, but it just feels kind of, you know, pointless in a way. I mean, you do need to do it to get the best version of that tank, and certain tanks, you know, play very bad until you get that certain ammo type or until you fully upgrade its engine and track and all that stuff, you know. I was looking at the description, it was talking about like lubrication and removing of bad parts, but it's not like a one-time deal, you know. That should be something that's obviously would be performed by your mechanics. Anytime with the Abrams we go to the range, we have mechanics come with us. Any issue that we have, they always there with us.
And it's not like you put oil in the Abrams once and then it has oil for life.
Lubricated once. Yep.
So what's your favorite thing about War Thunder? Why do you play it?
I like that there's a skill gap, you know. I like games that are competitive and require your knowledge and, you know, like ability to play it. So I like the competitive nature, and obviously I like all the war-themed games, you know, from Battlefields, and you know, I always, for example, like Battlefield versus Call of Duty. I always played Battlefield because it was more realistic, so I switched to War Thunder because it's more realistic than World of Tanks.
I can definitely relate to that. I also played Battlefield, and I am dead. And obviously you didn't serve on, I want to say, different tanks, so it's quite a situational
I was trained
question.
also on a Striker.
Oh, okay, nice.
But not the MGS version, because when we were done with our basic training, when we had orders to go to Germany, everybody who went to Germany stayed for extra 2 weeks to train on a Striker.
Apologies, we had a slight technical issues, but we are back. So, what challenges would you say you had as a tanker on the M1 Abrams? Like real life challenges that are necessarily portrayed in game?
Well, actually, mechanical failures. You know, that could delay you. You could be out there waiting forever to get something fixed. You know, if there's any malfunction or whatever. But that's not portrayed. And
Okay.
obviously, the whole thing about going through all the training and all the basic training and all these things, luckily you don't have to do that to play the game. You know?
How accurate would you say the M1 is modeled in game?
Pretty good. The small details on it that I've noticed, as far as like what they put on the back, as far as like the decoration and stuff, boxes of MREs and duffel bags with stuff. I'm not sure how it is, you know, in combat and how much you're out, but especially like if we're talking about the recent combat that the Abrams is in. You know, they don't load it with 8 boxes of MREs because they go out on a mission and typically come back. It's not like they're out there for months on end. I mean, it's cool little details, but I wouldn't say that's realistic. There was something I think I noticed. I gotta go back and look at it again. It looked like the loader had a viewport, which I don't really remember that it had that. And the loader, his job is not really to look at anything anyways.
Fair enough. And like communication probably is key, being a tanker and being part of a crew. Do you think like it's kind of accurately portrayed in the game with, like, let's say the fire control system, if you go into binoculars and you click to, like, as the commander with the whole I think it's called hunter killer mode, how would you say, how accurate is that compared to real life hunter killer mode? I am not having a good match.
Yeah. Well, like the commander, I did a video about this. What I was trying to do, like, what it would sound like for a crew. You know, I took War Thunder footage that I had of like maybe intense battle, and I did like voiceover from the AI. You know, doing all the commands and what it may sound like for, you know, if you're listening to the crew. And obviously the commander will call out the target, what kind of target it is. He'll say what kind of ammunition to use, the direction and the distance. You know,
Gunner, heat, PC.
Exactly. Yep. And then when the loader loads, he has like a safety lever that he has to pull, and that's when you hear up. Not only that the round is loaded, but the lever is pulled up. Without that lever, you won't be able to fire. And basically, you have to step to the side, away from the breech, because of the recoil. You know, as massive as that breech is, it will just crush a human being if they're standing in the way. So that lever is kind of for them to also remember, you know, to step away. He loads, he steps back, pulls the lever, he says up. You know, gunner will see the target, will say, you know, identified, and commander will say fire. Gunner will be on the way, you know, fire, and then they'll may say give drivers commands, you know, may say driver back up, forward, or back, or whatever, you know. So the imagine like the tank commander has to tell every single crew member kind of what to do. Tells the driver to pull up, pull back. Tells the loader what type of round to load, you know, and so on.
Okay. And
So
speaking
there's
of
a lot
load,
going on.
speaking of the loader as well, obviously in War Thunder, there is you can get the Abrams down to 5 seconds loading time, I believe. What would you say was like an average load time an experienced loader could load the Abrams in real life?
4 or 5 seconds or less. And
That's
you know,
not bad.
your life depends on it, literally.
Yes.
You know, and we train. A unit should have standards. Like when you're with certain units, they have certain standard for physical fitness. You know, even though let's say the passing score is 260, that they strive for everybody to be at least at a minimum at 280, for example. You know.
Okay.
So same thing with like loaders. It's 5 seconds or less,
And
basically, for us. And I've
is
seen guys load it in 4 seconds, 4.5 seconds. You know, that's kind of the standard.
would the tank driving affect the loader and the loading times? How often would it be that the loader would load while the tank is moving?
I mean, it depends, how fast and what kind of terrain. Obviously, if it's super bumpy, then yeah, it would probably affect it. But if it's just a road and it drives fairly smooth, plus the gun itself moves because it has stability on the gun. So, but the breach, like at the bottom of the breach when it opens, there's like a place where you kind of lay the round, so you don't have to. It's not like a flat vertical hole, you know what I mean, that you have to get kind of aim, get the tip in, and so you kind of set the round down and shove it in, you know what I mean?
On a lot of autoloaders, I believe after the gun fires, the barrel raises so that the autoloader can line up to the breech better. Does the Abrams have something similar?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't lower, but there's one interesting thing about as far as realism and Abrams in the game. You know how in the game when your driver gets killed, one of your crew members will take his spot, after a certain time. Well, in the Abrams, it would be pretty much impossible unless the turret is turned back and slightly to the left, because that's when the inside the turret there's like a gate, and it's behind the gun, behind the gun breech. So if the gun is facing forward, the gate is looking back, not towards the driver. Now you won't be able to get in unless if you turn and align the gates basically off the hole of the tank with the driver hole and the turret. And you won't be able to climb from the outside either, because once the hatch is locked, you can't open it unless you can only open it from the inside. So that means if the driver gets killed in the Abrams, you have to turn that turret, the gun, to the rear and slightly to the left. I think in the video or pictures you may see that the exact position where the basically gun has to be faced in order for let's say the tank commander. I mean, I don't know who would climb. Probably the tank commander would climb in the driver's hole, but then who will be able to, because your visibility is very limited. As a driver, you can only look forward and slightly to the left and to the right. So you won't be able to see anything, and nevertheless command anything. And the gunner also has very limited visibility because, he sees through the optics, basically. So the only way, I guess, maybe the loader could hop out and look out the hatch. So you'll have to go down to load.
In the game, the Abrams obviously has the turbine engine, and it is quite a loud vehicle. But I've heard multiple people say the Abrams is loud from the rear, but quiet from the front. How would you say, how accurate is that statement?
I mean, you can hear it. You can probably hear it. I don't know, 50 meters. You can hear it pretty well. Probably, what they may refer to as like if you're in another tank, and you're like over 100 meters out, or even maybe 50, you might not hear it because, and I sent you the video from the inside of the Abrams. If you're not wearing your headphones, like your CVC, you can't hear anything that's going on outside, you know? And even with CVC, you can't really hear anything that's going on outside from the Abrams, so I can't imagine what it would be like, you know, and how loud the other tanks are, you know, in real life.
Could you care to explain what the CVC is?
So yeah, that's CVC comes with like a liner and basically the headphones, and internally they connect, and you're able to have a microphone and you'll be able to communicate. Otherwise, you have to scream and you can't hear anything really without the CVC. Now it does have a setting, I believe, where you can hear what's going on outside, but that's only, for example, if they're doing like some kind of maintenance. Let's say they do bore sighting or something on the outside and they need to talk to you. When they scream, if you have that setting on, you'll be able to hear something that's going on outside. But as far as like hearing a tank, even like 50 meters out, I highly doubt you'll be able to hear it in real life.
And the Abrams has I want to say, a telephone at the back, if I'm not mistaken.
Don't remember. Never used it.
Huh. Okay.
Where is it supposed to be? Like in the back?
If I'm
Are you
not
talking
mistaken,
about talking to inside of the for
yes, from
communicating
outside to
the phone?
inside, yes.
Never used it. I don't. Where is it supposed to be?
I believe I'm not. This is totally speculation now. I think it's at the rear for infantry to be able to talk to, like I believe the tank commander.
I've never seen it.
Like, do not take my word on this.
Mm-hmm.
Just get RT on this guy. Would you say your military background, especially as a tanker, influences how you play the game with tactics and yeah, your play style?
I wouldn't say it influences it a lot, honestly. It's learning the game mechanics, you know, like learning the game more than having the experience from being on a tank. Because from being on a tank, you mainly follow commands, you know. In the game, nobody tells you go left, go right, you know, there's a tank, aim, shoot, you know, what kind of round to shoot. So you have to learn the game itself, so it's more like gaming experience rather than actual tank experience.
Okay. Now a unique question. Why do you play War Thunder?
I like being competitive. You know, I play many games. I do like playing strategy games. I like stuff that engages my brain too, you know, thinking on the fly. The one thing sometimes that actually may influence my game, but not in a good way, is I'll go into places and like look for trouble. You know, I know I'm making a mistake, I still go there just to kind of get that maybe adrenaline rush, that put myself in the situations like, oh, you know, now I have to angle, now I have to time a shot. He fired. How long does he have to reload before, you know, before he fires? Now I angle, you know what I mean? So I like that aspect of it where it engages my brain and competitive nature.
How balanced would you say War Thunder is at the moment?
I don't know, honestly, because I haven't played the game for years, like you do. Sometimes it feels unbalanced. Let's say if I play American tanks at 6.7, and then I'll jump, and then we get our butt kicked by all the Tigers. They're just pushing us like they don't care. But then I jump on the Tiger, you know, and then they pin me. They're super accurate, hit me in the weak spot in the front of the turret, you know what I mean? So sometimes it feels unbalanced until you jump and you're on the other end, and then you're like, well, it's kind of like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Maybe it's my skill issue, but I can't tell because I probably haven't played the game enough to say that something is really unbalanced. You know,
I mean, I feel like you need to play to your vehicle strength, like with if you can compare to the Shermans, being stabilized, getting that first shot off around the corner, but then your first shot needs to be accurate, otherwise you're gonna die.
Exactly. So sometimes it feels like unfair, but until you jump on the other tank and then you encounter other thing that counters you, whether it's by outmaneuvering you because they're faster, or because they have a stabilizer, or because something else, you know. It's very difficult to balance something like this, you know.
Definitely, especially when it comes to military things where there's, I want to say, restricted information and classified information.
Yeah, you also got to think about each military vehicle, or vehicle, plane, tank, whatever it might be. It's always to counter something else. So whatever they're making, they typically is better than what they. And then the other side then tries to counter that, you know. So it's like, how do you balance that? You know, you have something with a certain performance, and then the other nation comes up with something to counter that, and then you know what I mean? So then it's supposed to be better, supposed to pin the armor of that tank, you know, like the IS-3, for example. You know, when that thing came out in real life, you know what I mean, they made the NATO countries kind of panic, you know. So then they come up with tanks to counter that armor, you know, and then it kind of non-stop.
To interject on that point with the whole, I kind of want to call it like the space race of guns. That like, we make 100mm gun, we make 105, we make 115, yep. We'll make a 120. Well, we'll make a 125. Like, it's just one-upping each other the whole time.
Exactly. So how do you balance that? You know?
Yeah. No, I can definitely hear and understand that. Now, in your opinion, would you say Russian bias is real?
The Russian bias real? Here I am in the Soviet T-34, just capturing the point, so my team doesn't lose. Here comes a huge explosion, so large in fact, it ragdolls my tank. I asked my teammate for help, but as a typical German, he doesn't. Was I supposed to survive that? Would another tank survive that? I laid here like that for the rest of the match. As long as I didn't try to move, the enemy didn't know I was alive. As soon as I moved, I was discovered. No one was able to come and save me. At some point, I had 6 enemy tanks around me, but no one knew I was alive. So what do you think?
Sometimes it seems like it, you know, and sometimes I feel like people would like to think it is, because wasn't the game developed by the Russians initially?
I believe
like that?
So, yes.
So it could be that they were a little biased, or who knows whether they had the integrity to, you know, try to make it realistic, or maybe they have more information about their own tanks, for example, you know, versus NATO.
And you said you're a relatively new player, so this is an ideal question suited for you. Is what do you wish you knew when starting to playing the game? Like, any tips for new players?
It's a good question. Probably I would say, like, to concentrate on the tanks you like, because what I did, and I kind of still do it in a way, is I research every single tank in that rank before moving, you know, because I'm thinking, oh, you know, I need to get all of these, and I'll stack my setup, you know, I'll have like literally every single tank, you know, at 6.7, you know, get all of them, put them in there. But lately I've been actually playing more to enjoy my game, and it would consist of a light fast tank that I go and have some fun. I capture a point, you know, and get some kills, and sometimes get, like, I have some videos there on my channel, like, you know, 8 kills, or, you know, and sometimes I get displacement, so that's my probably max, and a light tank, you know, and that's the most fun I have. And then I'll just jump in the plane, play the planes. So just, I would say, instead of trying to load your setup with every single tank, just choose the ones you like, play that, and try to enjoy the game. That's what I'm trying to say, you know. That's really the most important thing, is trying to enjoy the game. Play the tanks you like, and don't play the ones you don't like just because, you know, they're there.
Oh yeah, I have to put you on the spot. Would you be able to nominate someone to be on the next episode of Hangar Hangouts? Who would you nominate? Whose content do you enjoy?
I apologize, I don't remember the guy's name. He's, I've seen him on TikTok randomly scrolling. I've seen his videos all the time. He answers a lot of questions, so I think he would be, like, probably the best. I think he was a master gunner on the Abrams. A white guy with like square glasses,
Skinny
skinnier
guy.
guy.
I
Yeah,
think it's Brandon
and
Farrow that you're referring to.
yeah, he seems to be very knowledgeable from that aspect. I think what I what I may try to describe to War Thunder players best as far as being a tank, again, it's more of what the game lacks, or probably maybe even impossible to even implement it. You know, it's that human element of that. You know, there's nothing that it can convey as far as like how much confidence you have as an 18-year-old in your tank commander, you know, to make the right decision. And I can't convey the power of the Abrams. Like when I was in it, how powerful it feels to be in it, you know, and protected as well, you know, and the camaraderie, that the stuff that you went through in basic training with these guys, and then you end up, one of them ends up your loader, you know, you end up bonding with them. And yeah, there's a lot that goes into it that the game just, it's impossible to put it in the game, you know. And probably you know, tank on tank combat, as chaotic, scary, adrenaline rush, like all these things that a tank crew would experience and combat, it's just impossible to put it in the game.
And one recent development on the modern battlefield, do you think the age of tanks has now drastically changed with, I want to say, the implementation of like small FPV drones?
Yeah, that's you know, but don't they say that with every like era of war? They're like, oh, that's it, we're not gonna need tanks anymore. I don't know
they've
how
been retiring the tanks since its
Yeah.
inception. No, I definitely hear
Exactly.
that.
So as soon as they come up with a way to jam drones, probably tanks will be back, you know, and everything is gonna be fine. But yeah, it's very very difficult to be a tanker nowadays. You know, I'm kind of, you know, I felt one way when I was in the Abrams back then. I don't know how I feel on the modern battlefield with drones everywhere that can, you know, and artillery as well, you know, because it's just not, it's not the same. The war's not currently fought the same way we were trained to fight it. You know, you're never alone in your tank. You know, there's always other tanks with you, and there's infantry, there's support, there's this, there's that. You know, nowadays you look at it, just one tank riding around because they don't want to be in the group. Because when they're in the group, you know, drones starts taking them out, artillery, you know, or disables the tank, maybe not kill it completely, but then artillery comes in, this comes in, helicopters, that, you know, and just, it's chaos. You know, I don't know, it's pretty scary to be in the tank right now.
Yeah, that's not a place I would envy to be currently.
And you know, the weird thing is, when I joined, it was because of there was still the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and I thought, well, I would much be better, you know, I feel much safer being in a tank than being infantry, you know. But
With
nowadays,
the whole
who knows?
IEDs and everything.
Yeah, but even IEDs, you know, Abrams, I've known a lot of guys. I had a sergeant that probably got blown up like 4 or 5 times on an IED, but he's fine.
Yeah, I'd rather be in an Abrams hitting an IED than a Humvee, to be fair.
Yeah, that's for sure. I also drove the Strikers, and you know, the funny thing about that, I don't know if you heard about them. You know, the MGS, well, the one with a 105 on it, the variation. It used to roll over if you were shooting sideways, like if the gun was facing sideways. Like the first variations of that, when it fired, it used to roll over to the side.
It does look
I
very
guess
top
they
heavy and wobbly.
Yeah, and it's very jumpy, like compared to the Abrams. Like the Abrams, they say it rides like a Cadillac. It's literally, it rides like a Cadillac. You know, you don't feel any bumps. It's just super smooth, like a yacht. But we driving the Striker, it's just like a bouncy castle. You know, the whole thing is just bouncing all over the place.
And is there any specific vehicle that you would like to see in game that currently isn't? Is there like a wish-listed vehicle you would love to have in game?
Probably to see more of the modern, like the T-14 Armadas,
Okay.
whatever other stuff, you know, the most modern vehicles. I'm trying to think what they have in like World of Tanks. I said this on one of my videos, like one of my first videos on TikTok, and I got a lot of backlash for that, where I said like to add more prototypes and like experimental tanks into War Thunder, and I think they probably will do that anyways. You know, as
They'll
time
have to
goes
at
by.
a stage
Yeah.
because they're gonna run out of vehicles eventually.
Exactly. So they're gonna have to add. I mean, they already have the mouse. They already have like other vehicles that were not really production tanks.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, whenever I see videos on the mouse, you know, people like it. You know what I mean? People watch it. People want it. But when I
Exactly.
said certain tech trees are missing, like light tanks, heavies, like the Japanese heavies, would have been cool to have for me, you know. And
Like,
and
what's that? That Japanese one, the OI or something, that extremely
Yep.
heavy thing that resembles the mouse as well. I still remember that
Yep.
from World of Tanks.
Yeah, so that's one thing I do kind of miss, because you get to a certain point with some tech trees is that like, okay, you have mediums and heavy but no light, so you have to use a light from like earlier, you know, from a different BR rating or whatever. Like Germany, what they got, that light tank, what was it called here? To get that long name.
Sonderkraftfahrzeug
The Lux, oh no.
234.
It's the
Weird.
Panther basically. Yeah,
Okay.
it's VR 3.7. The Puma, sorry, it's
Oh,
Puma,
oh, oh,
right?
oh, I was referring to something that wasn't in the game. Okay, yeah, the Puma.
No, Puma, yeah. So I love that tank, 3.7. But then you have no light tanks up until the M41.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of grinding with no fast, lightweight tank. So it's like, I like to play the light tanks, but I don't have it, you know? So that's kind of what I wish. But I don't know if other War Thunder players agree with me. That's just kind of my opinion, that I wish I had more choice within the BR ratings and not so limited, but I understand why it doesn't. You know, try to be realistic or whatnot, or period correct.
What inspires you to make War Thunder content?
I enjoy the game. I decided I was going to do content before I started playing War Thunder. I actually started doing content back on my old job when I was a locksmith. After the army, I was a locksmith. And started doing videos on that and started to get some success. And then I said, well, you know, I play a lot of video games. I've been playing video games since like the early days of FIFA, you know, and the Counter-Strike like 1.6, you know, back
Oh,
in
the glory
I
days.
don't know, like yeah, like Need for Speed Underground, Underground 2, like played all of those up until I think Pro Street or something, you know. And so Age of Empires 2, I remember that with the whole monster truck cheat codes, and
Mm-hmm.
so I played video games all my life. It's just one of those things I do for fun, and I think I have a lot of content. You know, although I didn't play great today, I play much better when I'm not doing an interview.
No, the focus is different. I don't blame you
Yeah,
at all. Um,
I typically play better than an average. I would say like I'm a pro, amateur pro, if I can say that. You know what I mean? Like I can
I mean,
play
I've seen
better
you
than the
drop the
average
nuke,
person,
so
but no, that wasn't me. I think it was if you're talking about, that was a support for a nuke. I always get
oh,
close
okay.
to a nuke. I'm like always one kill away from a nuke. I haven't got it yet.
Well, soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's out on console yet, but one game that I would definitely recommend you check out is Gunner Heat PC. I think you might like that as well.
I've seen it back in the day, but you know, it doesn't necessarily. I don't necessarily need to play something like the Abrams,
Mm.
you know, like to give me that feeling of the Abrams. You know, those memories are cherished. You know, when I think about it, I remember like the friends that I had. You know, all the experiences that I had. I don't need to play a game necessarily like a tank game.
Mm-hmm.
It can be pretty much any game. Could be a strategy game. Could be, you know, something competitive. Sometimes I play a lot of. I don't know if you've heard of Like the Total War series, I play that, like the Rome and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot.
Yes.
I like Hearts of Iron 4, Company of Heroes 2, and
Oh, yes.
I was always fascinated with World War II. To me, I try to think, I think one thing that gives me an edge maybe a little bit being on a tank making content creator is, I look at it from the human perspective,
Mm-hmm.
like what it actually feels like to do it. So I can't imagine what it was like being on the Tiger on the Eastern Front, or even on Tiger 2, like first time encountering, or even like the Panzers, the early Panzers encountering the T-34 for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a German officer that wrote in his notebook, said, all we were joking, always saying that all we have to do is spit at the Russian tank and it'll just fall apart. But here comes the T-34 for the first time they encounter it. They shoot it first time, second time, third time, and it bounces. And like, there's no way that these Soviets are able to build a machine that's better than ours.
Half a dozen anti-tank guns fire shells at him, a T-34, which sound like a drum roll. But he drives staunchly through our line like an impregnable prehistoric monster. It is remarkable that Lieutenant Stupp's tank made hits on a T-34, once at about 20 meters and 4 times at 50 meters, with Panzergranate 40, caliber 5 centimeters, without any noticeable effect.
You know? So like those experiences, those are the things that I like to think about, and I oftentimes when I even play strategy games, like when I play Rome, for example, I would have a documentary running in the background while I'm playing the game. Like I immerse myself in that world, you know what I mean?
I hear you, yeah.
So
Like,
War Thunder, that's what I kind of do. I almost try to immerse myself, and I've done some content. What I do, kind of like I take footage from the game that was kind of intense, and I try to put the human element to it. It doesn't get as many views as my other content, but I really enjoy doing that type of stuff, like the
What is your
stories.
favorite video that you've done so far on your channel?
Probably a video that didn't get many views. Like I said, the ones that are, let's see, the stories one, the T-34 Last Stand, it's called. Only 415 views on it. And that was me against 2 tigers. Another one was stories with the IS-2. Yeah, so, and I did like, I like being creative with my videos. If you watch my videos, they're not like the same. They're not like news based. They're not like really technical. I do stuff as far as ideas and just being creative, talking about certain things, my ideas, or doing that whole voiceover for a crew. And some people find it really entertaining.
Definitely.
And I do find it entertaining to make, being creative.
So there you have it, guys. That was Corsair Gaming. Corsair, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated you taking the time to come have this interview, and it was really nice having you on here. And yeah, best of luck for your future and with your channel.
Thank you very much to you as well.
Guys, there you have it. Go check out Corsair Gaming's channel. Hit him up. I believe he's on TikTok. You will see all his links below. Guys, as always, have a great day. Burgernator out.
Nice. That was tasty. Nom 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 nom.